You wake up tired, not because you didn't sleep enough, but because something's already pulling at you. Before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already juggling 5 tabs. Messages you haven't opened, tasks you haven't finished, people you haven't responded to. And the crazy part is, none of it feels like yours. Your attention has been scattered across 1,000 small obligations that all come with this unspoken pressure. Keep up or fall behind. The truth is, your energy didn't just vanish. It's been leaking quietly, slowly, through the little things you tolerate. That friend who only calls when they want something. That notification you check even though you don't care. That voice in your head telling you to do more, fix more, prove more, even when you're running on empty. Focus doesn't disappear. It gets traded. And most people are trading it for noise, for headlines they don't care about, opinions they didn't ask for, and expectations they never agreed to meet. You're not unfocused. You're just overwhelmed by everything except what actually matters. Reclaiming your energy doesn't start with a to-do list or a productivity hack. It starts with a confrontation. You've got to be honest with yourself. Who or what is quietly robbing your focus? What are you giving your time to that leaves you feeling more drained than fulfilled? It's uncomfortable because sometimes it's not just people or distractions. Sometimes it's habits. Sometimes it's the way we speak to ourselves. You can't reclaim your energy if the voice inside your head is constantly shaming you for not being perfect or productive enough or further ahead. And here's the thing. When you stop feeding everything that doesn't feed you, you don't just feel better. You see clearer. You start remembering what actually matters, what feels good, what makes you feel like you again. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about getting back the parts of you that got buried under the noise. Your calm, your creativity, your clarity, and yeah, even your edge. The fire you had before you got so used to dimming it for the comfort of others. Most people think their energy is stolen by dramatic events or major burnout. But that's rarely how it happens. It gets chipped away by small, invisible agreements we never realized we were making. Like saying yes when you meant no. Not because you wanted to, but because you didn't want to disappoint someone. Like opening your phone just to check something quickly and finding yourself lost in a scroll that feels more draining than entertaining. Or staying in environments that don't challenge you to grow, but make you feel stuck, like you're walking in mental quicksand. It's not about being lazy or unmotivated. It's about being overstimulated by things that mean nothing to your core. And here's the quiet trap. The more fragmented your attention becomes, the harder it is to feel connected to yourself. You lose that inner signal, the one that tells you, this is what matters. This is what you care about. This is worth it. Your energy. Ever notice how sometimes a conversation with the right person, or even 10 quiet minutes alone, makes you feel more recharged than an entire day off filled with distractions? That's not a coincidence. That's alignment. That's what happens when your energy is actually going towards something that matters to you. People talk about protecting your peace as if it means isolating yourself. But really, it's about filtering your inputs, being selective with what you give your attention to. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because your attention is finite. And what you feed grows. And yeah, this means sometimes pulling back from things that once felt comfortable, certain routines, certain people, even certain thoughts. Not out of judgment, but because you're now choosing clarity over chaos. That's where focus begins. Not in force, but in subtraction. Not adding more into your day, but removing what doesn't belong there in the first place. It's weird how normal it feels to run on fumes. How often we normalize the exhaustion, the mental clutter, the distracted eating, the restless scrolling, until you take a step back and ask, when did I stop feeling present in my own life? The real reset doesn't come from escape. It comes from awareness. The moment you start paying attention to what you're paying attention to, everything changes. There's a strange thing that happens when you begin reclaiming your focus. At first, it feels like loss. You start letting go of distractions, scrolling less, checking messages less, talking less, and suddenly, the silence feels loud, uncomfortable even. It's almost like you're stepping out of a crowded room and for the first time you can hear yourself think. But you're not sure you recognize the voice. Because for so long, your mind has been filled with noise that wasn't yours. Notifications telling you what to care about, opinions telling you who you should be, trends telling you what matters right now. And it's only when you take a few steps back that you realize your inner world has been outsourced. You've been running on borrowed values, borrowed urgency, borrowed chaos. That's why the first step back into clarity feels awkward. There's no external stimulation to validate your worth every 5 minutes. No constant ping to remind you you're connected. And that's exactly the detox your nervous system has been craving. But here's where most people get stuck. They wait for motivation to come before taking action. They think they'll feel focused once they find the perfect productivity hack, or read the right book, or finally feel ready. But clarity isn't something you wait for. It's something you create by removing everything that blurs it. And no, you don't need to quit everything and disappear into a mountain cabin. That's the fantasy version. The real version is quiet and unsexy. It's choosing to put your phone in another room when you're working. It's saying no to that event that drains you, even if you feel guilty. It's going for a walk without headphones and just letting your thoughts breathe. It's small, consistent acts of rebellion against the things that keep you distracted from your own life. And then something beautiful starts to happen. You begin noticing the subtle details again, the way light hits the wall, the sound of your footsteps, the feeling of breathing in and out without rush. It's not productivity, it's presence, and it restores a kind of energy you didn't know you were leaking. People think burnout comes from doing too much, but often it's from caring too much about things that don't align with you, from scattering your energy across too many priorities that don't feel like your own. So regaining focus isn't about becoming more efficient. It's about becoming more honest. What actually matters to you? What have you been pretending to care about just to fit in? When you stop lying to yourself about what you should be doing, you create space to reconnect with what you actually want to do. And in that space, focus isn't something you chase. It becomes natural, like breathing, like returning to a rhythm you forgot was yours. Once you start clearing space for real focus, something unexpected happens. Emotions you've been avoiding start to surface. It's not just silence that rushes in. It's your own mind finally stepping forward, without the usual distractions acting as a buffer. And for a lot of people, that's when they shut the door again. Because clarity doesn't just reveal what you want, it also exposes what you've been avoiding. Suddenly, you realize how long you've been staying busy, just to avoid that lingering discomfort, the regret that never got processed, the anxiety that only went quiet when your schedule got loud, the fear that if you slowed down, everything would fall apart, including your identity. But here's the real twist. Nothing collapses when you slow down. In fact, it's the opposite. You begin to see what's solid and what was only held together by noise. You start making decisions based on depth instead of panic. And you notice how many of your choices were actually reactions, not responses from a calm place, but emotional knee-jerks dressed up as productivity. Think about how often we confuse stimulation for purpose. We chase one task after another, not because they fulfill us, but because stopping would mean confronting how disconnected we feel. You answer every message, attend every meeting, say yes to every plan, not out of desire, but out of habit, out of fear that being unavailable might make you irrelevant. But relevance isn't built by constant visibility. It's built by authenticity, the kind of presence that doesn't scream for attention but holds weight when it speaks. The kind of person who enters a room quietly but shifts the whole tone without even trying. That doesn't come from more input. It comes from having less noise inside you. So when people talk about reclaiming their energy, it's not about cutting people off or escaping to the woods. It's about standing in the middle of your life and choosing what deserves your attention like it's a currency, because it is. And once you treat it that way, you start noticing how much you've been spending on things that give you nothing back. The people who reclaim their energy aren't magical. They've just stopped negotiating with everything. They've stopped making their peace of mind a group project. They've learned that sometimes your focus gets stronger not by adding structure, but by subtracting everything that weakens your center. The funny thing is, most of the energy we think we've lost isn't actually gone. It's just tangled, wrapped up in things we've said yes to out of guilt, locked into arguments we keep replaying in our heads, hidden in the versions of ourselves we think we're supposed to be just to make others comfortable. You don't need more energy. You need to untie where it's leaking. Take a moment and think about how often you interrupt your own rhythm just to explain yourself. How often you shrink a little to avoid making someone else uncomfortable. Or how often you feel drained after a day, not because it was hard, but because none of it was aligned with who you really are. Reclaiming your energy starts there, not with a new routine or another journal, but with one uncomfortable realization. You're exhausted because you've been living too far from yourself. That distance, it's subtle. It builds slowly. You go along with conversations you don't agree with. You laugh at jokes that don't sit right. You put things on your calendar that you immediately regret. And each one of those small compromises seems harmless, until one day, you don't recognize the life you're maintaining. It's like living inside someone else's rhythm, wearing someone else's skin. This is why people who reclaim their focus often start saying no more often. Not because they're selfish, but because they finally realize that protecting your energy is not rude. It's sacred. It's the only way to keep your life honest. And the truth is, no one is coming to give you permission. No one will say, "Hey, I think you're doing too much for me. Maybe focus on yourself." It doesn't work like that. The world will take as much of you as you're willing to give away. And if you don't decide where the line is, someone else will draw it for you. And chances are, they'll place it way past your limits. But when you begin to operate from clarity, you don't need to be louder to be heard. You don't need to explain your boundaries or convince anyone that your focus is valid. You simply begin living in a way that reflects your own values. And that alone becomes powerful. People might not always understand it. Some might pull away. But that's okay, because the version of you that is coming forward, the one with intention, the one with space to think and breathe, that's the version that's been buried under everyone else's expectations. And now it's finally getting air. Now here's the strange part. Once you reclaim your energy and begin focusing it with intention, the world around you doesn't just change, it begins to respond. You'll notice conversations feel lighter because you're not trying to carry them. Tasks you used to avoid somehow get done faster. Not because they became easier, but because your presence became sharper. You stop multitasking, not as a discipline, but because your mind no longer feels scattered across places it doesn't belong. You're here, fully, and people around you feel that. There's a clarity that comes with protecting your space. And with it, something rare, discernment. You begin to see what deserves your attention, and what only drains it. You see through the noise. You realize how often people confuse urgency with importance, and how easy it is to live in reaction mode until you decide to opt out. From here on, you don't chase peace, you create it. You don't wait for motivation, you move from alignment. Your calendar looks different, your habits look different. Even your thoughts, once cluttered and chaotic, start to quiet down. Not because life became perfect, but because you stopped giving every little thing permission to invade your inner world. And that's the core of it. Your energy, your focus, your life. It's yours, but it will never feel like it until you start choosing what actually deserves a place in it. If this video made something click for you, even in the smallest way, drop a comment below and share what you're walking away with. And if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week we go deeper into the kind of truth that doesn't just sound nice. It actually shifts something inside you. Let's keep building that together.